David Foster Wallace was born on February 21st, 1962. His father, James Donald Wallace, was and still is a professor of moral philosophy, and his mother, Sally Jean Wallace, was a professor in English before retiring. When Wallace was in the fourth grade, his family moved to Illinois. Throughout his adolescence, Wallace was an avid tennis player and was regionally ranked among other junior tennis players.
In the United States Tennis Association's Western section when you were 14 years old.
That sounds very impressive. That's a regional ranking, and it means that I was probably 4,000th in the nation for my age group.
Wallace attended Amherst College for his undergraduate degrees in both English and philosophy. Within the realm of philosophy, he gravitated towards modal logic and mathematics, something that would have a profound impact on how he structured his most known novel, Infinite Jest. He was awarded the Gail Kennedy Memorial Prize for his senior thesis in philosophy, and his senior honor thesis for English became his first novel, The Broom of the System. After graduating from Amherst in 1985, he attended the University of Arizona and completed a fine arts master degree for creative writing, graduating in 1987. After this, he moved to Boston to attend Harvard for graduate work in philosophy, but soon left the program. At this point in Wallace's life, after undergoing literary achievement with his first novel and falling into obscurity with his short story collection, The Girl with the Curious Hair, the pressures of ambition and success turned failure led Wallace into a depression, and this culminated with him being admitted into the psychiatric McLean Hospital. Around this time, speculation of his drug usage and drinking began to take hold.
You have gone through, in your personal life, you've kind of been to hell and back.
I think I got some attention for some work that didn't really deserve it at an age when I had a hard time handling it. And it wasn't a whole lot of attention, but it seemed like a whole lot to, a library weenie from the lower level of Frost Library at Amherst College. And I had a hard time with it. And I was lucky enough to have a really hard time with it at an age early enough so that there was something left in my life when it was over. Whatever that meant. If you wanted something like really exciting or sexy, there really isn't much. I just got really
But were you, it was drugs and you were suicidal and the whole 9 yards, yes?
Yeah. Here's why I'm embarrassed talking about it.
I want to know why.
Not because I'm personally ashamed of it, but because everybody talks about it. I mean, it sounds like...
In other words, everybody talks about it for themselves, or everybody talks about you?
No, it sounds like some kind of Hollywood thing to do. Oh, he's out of the rehab and back in action.
No, I didn't say anything about rehab. I said something about the course that took you from Amherst College to back to Illinois.
I did some recreational drugs. I didn't have the stomach to drink very much, and I didn't have the nervous system to do anything very hard. Yeah, I did some drugs. I didn't do as many drugs as most of the people I know my age. What it turned out was I just don't have the nervous system to handle it.
He was eventually put through a program that led to him being a security guard for a time, and in order to control his depression, he was prescribed an antidepressant. Experiences from this time led him to write his 1,079-page novel, Infinite Jest, which after numerous years of writing was published in 1996.
There's a certain amount of ambivalence about, say, the reception that Infinite Jest got, because every writer dreams of having a lot of attention.
You bet.
But the fact of the matter is this is a long, difficult book, and a lot of the attention began coming at a time when, I can do elementary arithmetic. A lot of people hadn't had time to read the book yet. So the stuff about me or interesting rumors that develop about the book and all that stuff getting attention, I found that, I didn't like that very much just because I wanted people to read the book. I'm sorry.
In the American version of Infinite Jest, I set out to write a sad book. And when people liked it, and told me that the thing they liked about it was that it was so funny. It was just very surprising.
Infinite Jest takes place in a futuristic account of the United States, and it primarily moves back and forth between a junior tennis academy and a substance abuse recovery center that is close to the tennis academy. There are 4 primary narratives throughout the novel, and they are all connected by what is known as the entertainment. A film, aptly titled Infinite Jest, that is considered to be so incredibly entertaining and pleasurable that after someone watches it, they lose all interest in everything else, and with that, they eventually die. There are many themes throughout the novel stemming from addiction and familial relationships to advertisement and entertainment in today's society. However, the main theme and central idea of the novel was that of ordered chaos based upon the Sierpinski triangle, which is a mathematical fractal. After the success of Infinite Jest, Wallace eventually became a professor of creative writing, initially at Illinois State University and then at Pomona College in Claremont, California in 2001. He continued to release different books, including nonfiction collections such as A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again and Consider the Lobster, and some short story collections like Oblivion. He began writing his next novel, The Pale King, soon after completing press for Infinite Jest, but it was never completed and was released as is posthumously. On September 12, 2008, after decades of struggling with severe depression, Wallace went into his garage, wrote a 2-page note detailing the information on his manuscript of The Pale King, and then went to his patio and hung himself. His wife, Karen Green, found him that night, along with the note stating that he wanted to show the world what it was to be a fucking human being. Although Wallace cut his life short, his legacy continues. His commencement speech, This is Water, for Kenyon College, was made into a digital short.
There are these 2 young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?"
Numerous references in television and music pop up, such as a full episode of Parks and Recreation being an homage to Infinite Jest, and the music video for Calamity Song by the Decemberists portrayed the tennis game Eschaton from the novel.
On the road, it's well advised to follow your own bag. In the year of the chewable ambient crab.
Finally, Wallace was portrayed in 2015 by Jason Segel in the movie The End of the Tour.
Yes, you're performing muscular movements with your hand as you're jerking off, but what you're really doing, I think, is you're running a movie in your head. Mm-hmm. You're having a fantasy relationship with somebody who is not real, strictly to stimulate a neurological response. So look, as the internet grows in the next 10, 15 years, and virtual reality pornography becomes a reality, we're gonna have to develop some real machinery inside our guts to turn off pure unalloyed pleasure, or I don't know about you, I'm gonna have to leave the planet.
Why?
Because the technology is just gonna get better and better, and it's gonna get easier and easier and more convenient and more pleasurable to sit alone with images on a screen given to us by people who do not love us but want our money. And that's fine in low doses. But if it's the basic main staple of your diet, you're gonna die.
Well, come on.
In a very meaningful way, you're going to die.
Wallace's writing is considered by most to be postmodern. While some of the postmodern writers of the late 60s and early 70s inspired him, he tended to take issue with the use of irony and cynicism that is present in most postmodernism.
Interestingly fractured. So,
what does postmodern mean in literature?
No. It's after modernism is what it means. What it means. It's a very useful catch-all term because you say it and we all nod soberly as if we know what we're talking about. And in fact, we don't. There are certain, when I mean postmodern, I'm talking about maybe the black humorists who came along in the 1960s, the post-Nabokovians. I'm talking about Pynchon and Barthélemy and Barth, DeLillo in the early 70s, Coover, and I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot. Let me see.
But that's the camp you put yourself in.
I think
without comparison,
I think that's the camp that interested me when I was a student. The problem is I think postmodernism has to a large extent run its course. The biggest thing for me that was interesting about postmodernism is that it was the first text that was highly self-conscious. Self-conscious of itself as text, self-conscious of the writer as persona, self-conscious about the effects that narrative had on readers, and the fact that the readers probably knew that. It was the first generation of writers who'd actually read a lot of criticism, and there was a certain schizophrenia about it. It was very useful, it seems to me, because the culture, this was a real beaker of acid in the face of the culture. The culture at the time this came out, this was before, the Youth Rebellion in the 60s, was very staid and very conservative and very Alfred Kazanish. And the problem, though, is that a lot of the shticks of postmodernism, irony, cynicism, irreverence, are now part of whatever it is that's enervating in the culture itself, right? Burger King now sells hamburgers with "you gotta break the rules," right? So I don't really consider myself a postmodernist. I don't consider myself much of anything, but I do know that that's the tradition that excited me when I was starting to write.